Welcome back to the Warrior Servant Leader podcast. We are so glad you joined us today to hear our inspiring conversation with today's guest. She'll be the first to tell you leadership is not for the faint of heart. The pressure's real, the visibility is constant, and the margin for playing small is absolutely zero. And there are two kinds of leaders our guest works with, and both of them are serious. The first moves fast. They know what they want. They are ready to go. They need a thinking partner who can keep up, hold them accountable, and not waste their time with theory. They come to her because she matches their pace and never, ever lets them off the hook. The second has done everything right, followed the path, earned the title, built the reputation, and now they're standing at a place where the rules that got them here are not getting them to the next level. They need someone who respects the discipline it took to get this far and knows how to help them lead beyond it. What both have in common is this: they are done waiting. They are ready to do the work, and they understand what that next level requires is a different kind of thinking. And today's guest, Carla Coates, is that go-to person. And we're going to have a deep dive into all of this in a very fast-paced and informative conversation. Carla, it is so awesome to have you here. Welcome to the Warrior Servant Leader podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me, Pat. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, we're going to have a great time because we had a great conversation about a week or so ago on the phone, and I'm just excited to dive in to your journey and how you're going to be adding such incredible value to our listeners. Now, one of the things you shared with me is that you spent decades building a professional career. You were in leadership roles, and on paper, everything looked like, man, things are just ideal. You are a success, and yet you realized you were operating on autopilot and were quietly exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that.
Oh, goodness. See how I'm just rusting on my head right now? So I achieved a position I thought I would never achieve. I just thought, wow. And I was in the position, and then they transitioned me to another, and it became more exciting. I had a great team. But then I noticed it was maybe 2 or 3 years into it that something is missing in my life. I don't know where it is, what it is. And where I live in Maryland, I started driving around, and because I was supposed to go and pick up something. And then I said, well, let me just drive to Davidsonville. Davidsonville is like the country part. All these people own, acres and acres of land because they sell their produce. So I drove towards my home, and then I drove back to Davidsonville. And then I drove towards my home, and then I drove back. And I was like, what is going on with me? And I realized that I'm in my car and I'm crying. I'm thinking, this is strange. I've been to Davidsonville plenty of times, and I'm crying. Something's going on with me. And I tell you, one thing that I realized over time is that I felt guilty because I knew I wanted something else, but I was too afraid to let people know. And I wanted to own my own business. But Carla, why would you do that? You've got this great, awesome job. I work for the federal government. And if you are in the area or just familiar with the federal government, you know that old line, oh, you got a good government job. I had a real good government job, a really good one. And I appreciate it. But I just found myself feeling stuck, feeling guilty. And as I returned back home, I said, this has got to stop. Something's got to, I don't know what I need, but I know I needed to stop thinking bad about myself. So I eventually, I prayed, I hired a coach, and everything kind of exploded in a good way from there.
So that I'm going to call it a meltdown.
Yeah.
That meltdown was kind of your turning point.
Yep.
Wow. But let's go back a little bit, because I know in your position across the board, you were living by, and this is a quote from you.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it's on your Substack page, and that's where I found it, and I loved it. If you take care of your people will take care of the mission.
Yes.
And the first thing I thought as I was reading it, I'm going, oh, if you take care of your people, they're going to take care of you. But that's not what you said. You said they're going to take care of the mission.
Mm-hmm.
How did you arrive at that insight and that outward looking about taking care of people so they take care of the mission?
Okay. So years ago, I was a lousy leader. I was the type of leader that, do what I say. Because that's what I thought a leader was, do what I say. What's the big deal? And then as I started to go, and that was in the private industry. And then as I started working in the government, it was like, oh, Carla, you need to change. This is not how you lead people. So I started learning how to lead over time. And I always tell the story. My boss, she was an executive. She was upset with me one day. She came in my office and she cursed me out for 90 seconds. And I'm sitting there thinking, first of all, this woman's crazy. And then I thought, am I going to lose my job? I mean, you know how all these thoughts come through your mind? And I thought, okay, I'm going to report her to HR. But something sat me down and said, listen to what she said, not how she said it. It was the message over the delivery. And she basically said, I didn't take care of my people. I wasn't taking care of my people. I wasn't collaborating. And from there, I simply learned to look out for people of my staff. But then I had one employee who lived out of Pensacola, Florida. And we were talking about leadership one day. And she said, you know what? A former director said to me, if you take care of the people will take care of your mission. I said, that's it. Just to have something said to me, what I learned over time, I said, that's simply it. You have everyone, if you're in a leadership position, even if you're a mom, dad, you are in a leadership position. You have to show care and concern, to have empathy also for people, and not just expect, do what I say because I'm in charge. No, but if you take care of them, not treating them like children, if you respect them and help them in different ways, provide training and help their outside world as much as you can, again, not treating them like children, they will take care of your mission. I've learned it for a fact. I mean, so much to the point that I learned to hire the right people, and those right people took care of the mission as I took care of them.
I just got to ask you this question, because that's a great picture that you've painted, and I'm a visual learner. I'm not an audible learner, man. I know people are like, oh yeah, I drive to work, it's 45 minutes and I put my audio book on. I'm telling you, I'd be sound asleep in 10 minutes and wrecking my car. Are you a visual learner, or you're an audible learner?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Well, you, from an audible standpoint, and now I know why, because I was wondering when I was reading your bio, that you are a master storyteller designation. You paint a picture with words, so you're actually able to connect with the audible learner because of what you're saying, but you're creating a picture for us visual learners.
Yeah.
Did you formally learn how to do that, or is that just a gift that God gave you to be that type of? And the other thing is, I even wrote this down. Ooh, she went from being a boss to being a leader. So your ability to connect with people and be a storyteller that creates images, is that a learned skill, or did you kind of Are you gifted with that?
Um, I would say it comes naturally on one side, but then on the other side, I actually went to training, and it's called the Master Storyteller Academy. So they taught us how to put together a story, and I worked with my coach. Her name was Star Barbatune, and she is not only a master storyteller, but she was also an attorney. So she brought that piece into it. Say, no, I want you to make sure you connect with the audience. Make sure your voice goes up at certain times. Make sure it goes down, and then show emotion, and then leave it alone. And she was very hard on us. Not so much, and I don't mean hard meaning, like a taskmaster, but she wanted us to understand how to tell a story and how to paint a picture that people will listen to. So they don't sit there and go, "Oh, Pat, what time is it? Oh boy, when is Carla getting off stage? And is her name Carla? I don't know. I'm bored to death." She wanted to make sure that you could connect. And like you said, paint that visual picture. She would always say, tell the beginning of the story, tell the middle of the story, and tell the end of the story. Always.
Yeah, and that's kind of interesting because I've been a lawyer for 44 years, and I learned years ago. Actually, when I was in law school, I was a part-time bailiff, and that's where I started learning about how juries think. And one of the things that I learned as just a fundamental every day, not just being a lawyer, but period, this is how the human mind works. You hear in stereo, you remember in video, and you think in questions. And we have like 80,000 thoughts a day. About 50,000 of them, research says, are negative. But from the professional side of things, as a lawyer and as a trainer on the national circuit, is my audience, I got to remember they hear in stereo, remember in video, and think in questions. So you have to anticipate their questions. And how do you do that when you have a diverse audience, like in the workplace? Like statistically, 50% of the population are introverts, and the other 50% are extroverts, however you define all that. But how did you, and particularly having people that work remotely, that you said the one person was down in Florida, how do you learn how to communicate with individual people in a group setting?
Okay. So I want to take you back to 2000, let's say 2001, 2000, maybe 2002. There was an executive who would come to me, and he would ask a direct question like, Carla, where can I find that file? Something simple like that. Well, I would take him around the office. I mean, in my response, I would take him around, and he would look at me and then turn and walk away. And I said, this guy is rude. So a few months later, he came to me and he asked me another question. Let's just say, Carla, how do you turn on the TV in the office? I would take him around and round just to tell him the TV. And he would look at me and he would walk away. And I said, this guy, I can't stand him. He was rude. And then it clicked. Carla, you're not answering his question. He asked you a simple question and this is all going in my head, that you could have responded within 10 seconds. I said, okay, next time he comes to me, I'm going to answer. He came to me, this was a few months later, and he asked another question, and I answered it within like 5 seconds. And he leaned and he said, thank you, Carla. I said, so the answer to the question at the beginning, I have to listen. What does the person really want? And all he wanted was a 5-second question. He didn't want me to take a round a loop. So that was one thing I learned, is that I have to listen to my audience. And then a couple of things. One of the things I learned with having people along the different teams along the East Coast is that I had to be consistent. We would normally have a meeting on Monday, like a group meeting, and everybody had to show up. And this is before we started working on Zoom, StreamYard, anything. So we were all just on the phone. And I would have to sit there and listen, but I had to connect to them. So when they said something that was simply, Carla, I'm having a tough time. Well, what do you mean by that? So we would go deeper instead of just, I'm having a tough time with this particular organization. I just really want to help them. So I had to dig a little deeper, and then I had to connect people. And one instance happened where I had a couple of people in one particular area where they did not like each other at all. They were high-level people, highly intelligent, but they just hated each other. But they both worked for me. So I would still have them on the call, and I knew they didn't like each other. And I would simply treat the same person, that one person, as the other. And just one of the ladies told me when she retired, she said, Carla, I'm going to just call the guy Bill. Bill and I hated each other. She said, but you had us on those meetings every Monday, and we continued to collaborate. And over time, we built a friendship that started with hatred, but it's because you continued to work with us and made sure we were connected together. And at the end, she said, when I retired, guess who walked me out to my car with my box? I said, who? She said, Bill. So it was a part of me listening to them. It was also a part of connecting and to be consistent. That consistency is powerful. And when you mentioned the introverts and the extroverts, one of the things I realize is that I am a major extrovert, but at the same time, when I'm at home, I'm an introvert. Like, I don't know, let me just have my quiet time. But when I'm out, I'm an extrovert, and I'm loud. As you can see, I'm loud. But everybody doesn't respond like me. So with my introverts, I knew I needed to have, even though it was a lot of people, they needed to have private time. Whether it was 5 minutes with me, hey, Carla, can I work, spend some time with you? I just need to talk. And I don't want to talk in front of everybody else. It's not that I'm hiding anything, but I just need to be free to talk to you. So that's another thing. And if at a time that I would give awards, one person was a major introvert. He said, Carla, I know you're going to give me this award, but can you not, share it out with everybody? I was like, you don't want your award? He said, not publicly. So again, I had to learn that people aren't like me. Whereas me, I'm like, I'm getting an award. All right. But he didn't want it that way. So it takes time. The leadership, I think you said some of the beginning is not for the faint of heart. You said something like that. It really isn't, because it goes beyond the work, and it's really a showcase of the people, and you spending time learning their different personalities. That takes a while. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm writing notes all over the place. One of the things I hear you saying is it takes intentionality on your part with a very specific end in mind of what you're looking for. Mm-hmm. And I know that from a biblical standpoint, I'll paraphrase, whatever you're looking for, you're going to find more of it. Mm-hmm. And knock and the door will be open, seeking you shall find, all those things. How did you develop this mindset of that intentionality of looking for the personality of the individual so you could effectively communicate with them? Because so many people, particularly in my age bracket, and it's like way closer to 70 than it is to 60, is we were brought up with the mindset of if you want it done right, do it yourself. That was one of the worst pieces of advice I ever got, which I finally learned about the time I was 50. That's bad advice. And then the other thing is this mindset of suck it up, buttercup, and put your whatever nose to the grindstone, all that kind of stuff. Pull yourself up by the bootstraps. All those stupid sayings. And how did you come to that point where you're going, it's not about me, it's about my people? Because that's kind of in the workplace, that's kind of not the way things run.
Yeah. So I was used to, if there's something that needs to be accomplished, I need to do it myself. Just like you said. Yeah, I may have a team member, but you know what? I'm Carla. I do it far better than anyone else. Why do I need to ask anyone? And I started noticing a pattern with me. When I was given a large project, I would always spend so much time on the project and I wouldn't delegate. And like you mentioned earlier about a meltdown, with every huge project, I always had a meltdown. And it came to the same thing. And it's almost like, Carla, come on, get this in your head. It was the same thing as I simply did not delegate. And it one day I was headed, so I worked for the Department of the Navy, and I had a female captain over me, and I was worn out. I said, I just need a day off. I need a day off. So I went to her and I said, I need to talk to you. And she said, oh, about what, Carla? I said, about me. She said, oh, come into my office. So I went to her office and we sat down. She closed the door. And I told her all about what was going on. And she said, okay. And I said, I just need a mental break. And that was a Thursday. I just need Friday off. So after a 20-minute conversation, she goes and she says, okay, yeah, Carla, no problem. And as I walked out of her office towards my office, I noticed, let me see if I have it right here. Here it is. I noticed one of my main employees or high-level employees was sitting there like this, Pat. He was on his phone because he had nothing to do. And whose fault is that? That was mine.
Wow.
And I saw him and he said, oh, hey, Carly, he looks up. And my first thought, to be honest, was the audacity. But then I got over that. But then I said, okay, Carla, you're worn out because you're the problem. So I just started to delegate work. And I always say this line, if you're a leader in the organization, delegate, and delegate some more. Because sometimes we hold so many things to our chest that we're not willing. But then you can't support people. You can't be available. I'm not saying give up your role, but there's so many items that you should be able to, that I learned that I needed to delegate to people. And this particular person said to me, I think about 4 or 5, maybe 6 months later, he said, yeah, Carla, what are we going to do now that we're so busy now? And I started laughing. I said, okay, you're busy because I had to change. I had to change and delegate. So I would say that was one of the things that I learned. I can't take care of my people if I'm doing their job. And I can't take care of them if I don't have the space. Not to say I'm not sitting there not working all day long. But I still can be bogged down doing work that someone else should be responsible for.
Wow. See, now I'm not, or I was not that introspective as you were. I learned the same lesson, but it took a lieutenant. I was a sergeant, and I learned the exact same lesson in a very polite way. And if he hadn't said this, I would have just kept right on the same path I was on and it would probably still be on it right now. And it was at my annual performance evaluation. Mm-hmm. And he handed it to me. I was a squad sergeant, 8 at night to 6 in the morning. And so he came in. I'm doing roll call, and he pops his head in and says, "Hey, Pat, I need to see you after roll call." And I'm like, "Oh crap! It's 8 o'clock at night. What's he doing here?" And I'm like, "I mean, what did I do?" And because I didn't know he had my performance eval, and so I go in. He closes the door, hands it to me. He goes, "Read it, to yourself." And so I read over it. And he goes, under the area that it says strongest attribute, what's it say? And I read it. It said leads by example. And he goes, now the next line, it says area that needs improvement. What's it say? And I read it out loud, leading by example. And his name was Bruce Burt. And I'd known him for a long time. I mean, before I even became a cop. And in fact, we were even in a Bible study together. And he goes, "Pat, do you understand what that means?" I look at him, and now we're not talking bars, stars, and stripes. I look at him and said, "Bruce, I have absolutely no idea." And he said it in one sentence, and it was the most impactful evaluation I've ever got. There's a fine line between leading by example and doing somebody else's job for them. Oh. And that got my attention. Yeah. And if he hadn't, because I thought I was doing a great job. Mm-hmm. I had multiple department commendations, award of merits. I mean, I was a type go-getter. I was not a desk jockey. I'm out there shagging calls and as a sergeant and falling in on calls and arresting people and doing all sorts of stuff. And he had to put a lasso around my ego mm-hmm. and go, that's not leadership, Pat. Yeah. That's ego. And it wasn't until after I retired, because he didn't write it until after I retired, Ryan Holiday's book, Ego is the Enemy. Mm-hmm. And I wish I had had that resource, because I'm an avid reader. And but how do you deal with someone who is so egocentric, either above you or that you're responsible for in a leadership capacity, that is, for lack of a better term, they are toxic. Yeah. How do you deal with toxic people, especially if it's your boss who has that, treats everything like a nail and is always pounding it. What has worked for you in those kind of circumstances?
So with the boss, I had to learn that, they're not at my level. I'm not at their level. So I had to come across different, and I had to come across truthfully. So a lot of bosses I noticed with these huge egos, they're used to people saying, yes, boss, whatever. And after a look, I'm not going to lie to them. And I would even tell them at times when they would want me to pass something along as like half truth or white lie, whatever. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to lie to you, and I'm not going to lie for you. And I learned to say it in a gentle, but yet, face-to-face way. And their response was the same response. "Oh, Carla, I'm not asking you to do that. I'm not." Did. But now when you just say it, just, face-to-face, plain and simple. "Oh, Carla, I'm not, I see where you're coming from. I'm not gonna," it was always the hands and, up and down. So I learned to just be 100% honest with them and not to do it in public. If I got to know them and they still had that huge ego, but they were still comfortable with me, sometimes I would say, I disagree. But I had to not do it in public. And when we met privately, I had to be me, and I had to tell them the truth. I actually had this happen with one of the leaders. He had a someone who worked for him that really talked down to his high level managers. And I said, I'm done. And at that time, my mom lived with me, and I said, Ma, I have to go to office today. And it was during COVID. I said, I've got to go to office today. She's like, why are you going? I said, I got to office. I said, because I'm done. And she was like, oh, Carla, don't lose your job. But I got on this calendar and I told him, you cannot have this person who works directly for you disrespect us like this. He's treating us like, and at the time it was in the military, it's the E1, somebody who's brand new coming into for on our side, the Navy. And he started treating us like we just enlisted. And I was like, this is crazy. But I told him, I said, you know what? Also, I said, I'm done. I said, I even wrote it on my notepad. See, that I'm done. And he sat back in his chair. He said, okay, Carla, I don't need you done. I'm gonna work on it. And he did. But I just found that over time, I needed to be honest with them privately, face to face, and just give them whatever I have. And then over time, they started to respect me. And of course, they could say, you know, well, Carl, I hear what you're saying. I disagree. And they are well within their rights. But I had to learn to be me. That was the biggest thing with someone with a huge ego. And I also coached an executive one time. He went on and on and on about what his employee did not do. She didn't do this. She didn't do that. And she said she's not going to do this. And his ego was just, it was huge. And I sat there and I remained quiet because he needed the space to get everything out, because it was all about what she didn't do, not how can we work together to move forward. She didn't do this. And I sat there and I find it funny. He sat up in his chair the whole time and he's going on and on and on and on. And then once he finished, after 20 minutes, he sat back in his chair and went. So with that, I just learned that, the ego, sometimes it needs to come out. And then once it's out, I'm in reality. I need to be able to think about this as a human and not like I'm the best thing on earth and how dare you treat me like that. So those are just two instances with dealing with someone with ego. And sometimes it's just hard. They're just not they're not going to listen to you. Now, would you mind me talking about a toxic employee?
No, I'd love to hear that.
Okay, fire them.
Yeah, thank you. And because I teach admin and federal law, like I teach what keeps you out of trouble. Yep. And one of the biggest things that people get jammed up on in terminating an employee is they focus on personality and not performance. Mm-hmm. And that it's so incredibly important that, first of all, you have a very detailed job description of what are the expectations of performance in this particular position. I tell companies this all the time. I tell law enforcement all the time. If you have in your job description the words "in any other assigned task," cross that out, get rid of it. It's not enforceable, and you're going to get sued for a hostile work environment. Mm-hmm. But that's a whole nother discussion. But I agree that so often, especially in the military, I learned a general never gets fired. Yeah, well, he was fired. No, he wasn't. He was just transferred and became somebody else's problem. Yeah. Unless they're court-martialed, Article 15 and court-martialed, they're not fired. But in the private sector, fired means fired, and then you better be. Everything needs to be documented. Mm-hmm. But one of the things, as you were sharing that toxic boss interaction and whatnot, it reminds me of Chris Voss, who was the top hostage negotiator in the FBI, or one of the top international If you were taken hostage in the Philippines, the phone call went to the FBI, and Chris Voss was on the other end of the phone. And he wrote this book called Never Split the Difference. Fascinating book. And one of the things, Chris, as you're going down your checklist, listen to your audience. He talks about in hostage negotiations, shut up and listen. Yeah, listen to the person who you're negotiating with. And by the way, it's a negotiation. You know, you're not barking out orders. And be patient, be consistent, you know, that respect and all that kind of stuff, and connect people. And he goes, they always want something.
Yeah.
Well, that requires you to connect to somebody else that has that something that they want. So all those things are there. And then he goes, but here's one of the most important keys that you need to understand is don't get in an argument. And he goes, rather than saying, no, I can't do that, he goes, master this. Look at them and say, how do you expect me to do that? And then that gets them to start internally processing what they just demanded.
Okay.
Which was really fascinating because with a person that's toxic and that is that A-type, or as I call it, the south end of a northbound horse type of boss, is they're barking out these orders rather than get into an argument of why you can't do it, is put the burden back on them and go, how do you expect me to do that? You're telling me to do something. Now you give me the resources and the solutions to accomplish it. And he goes, you just keep getting them churning till they get to the point where you don't want them to say, well, you're right, because they're never going to do that. Or that's a defeatist standpoint for them to be in, that, oh man, you're right. You want them to get them to say, you know what, that's right. And then once you do that, then you can start negotiating and give and be realistic. You know, well, I want a helicopter and $1 million. How do you expect me to do that? And you just keep working them down. Every time they go, well, you can call da-da-da. How do you expect me to do that? I'm just an FBI agent. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think and I didn't have those skill sets. I just learned this in the last 18 months. And I'm like, where was this book, you know, in the 90s when I needed it, in the early 2000s? And and that's why it's so important that we get mentors and coaches like yourself that have that lived experience. So, you know what? You don't have to struggle for the next 10, 15, 20 years getting to where you want to be. And I like how you talked about that mission, that if you take care of your people will take care of the mission. And that's the one skill set they don't teach you in high school or college or even in your MBA. It's all about processes and not people.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things I learned about leadership is that you never stop learning. It is continuous. And I thought about when and someone you were talking about the negotiation, but when I was I was a manager at a collection agency because I used to be a bill collector for a little while, Pat. But I was a manager at a collection agency, and I remember I was training a male employee. Well, he had a girlfriend who was on the clerical staff, my clerical staff.
Really?
Yeah, and she worked for me. So both of them worked for me, but I would help him because he needed training. Well, one day she just decided she's going to approach me because now she's upset. She thinks that I'm interested in him. And I'm thinking, how did this happen? I'm just training him. And when you mentioned about the FBI agent don't get in an argument. Well, I got in an argument. I'm yelling back at her, and I'm looking back. I was like, for what point? And it was so bad that people in other organizations down the hall, they could hear us arguing. It was just terrible. So I just learned over time, and it took some time, but I learned over time. You know what? You can't get into arguments. You just
Yeah.
cannot. It took a while, and there were some times when I chose not to say anything because I'm sitting here and I'm just ready to knock this person out of their chair. And you need to shut up, Carla. You just need to shut up. So yeah, the frustration was just boiling in me, but I knew that I would go follow my mother's footsteps. Sticking that finger. Let me tell you something today. I just knew it, and I learned sometimes to keep quiet. I had to learn because you just like that gentleman said, you can't get into an argument.
Yeah.
Like I said at the beginning, leadership is learning. Leadership is continuous. It never ends. Never.
Yeah. Yeah. Two quotes come to mind as you're saying that, and I'm laughing because I've been married we've been married 46 years. And one of the lessons I learned, and I read it somewhere, it could have been on a coffee cup, I don't remember, but I read this somewhere years and years ago, that what you think, if you think you get the last word in an argument, you're wrong, because the last word is just the beginning of a new argument.
That's for sure.
And that's one. And then the other one, again, I don't know, because I read so much. It drives my wife nuts. I have upstairs. I'm reading 5 books, 5 different books in 5 different arenas at the same time. It's like, oh, I'll read a chapter of this one and put it down. Now I'm going to read, this one over here until I'm like, okay, that I got overload. Now I'm going to read this other book, And she's like, how do you do that? And I think it's partially because I'm neurodiverse, and but this was a quote: "Never argue with an idiot, because they'll drag you down to their level and beat you with experience." and
Yes.
knowing those two things, because being full-blooded, born in Ireland, man, I'm telling you what, I'm a talker. I'm a rapid thinker. I can be sarcastic as heck, and the book my mom made me read when I was in high school, because she saw this in me. It was called "Hung by the Tongue," and so it's been a lifetime journey and struggle for me to keep my mouth in check. But once I have internalized that, I've gotten better at it. But man, I can still be, you piss me off. I'm going to say some things probably you're going to regret. But so, and kind of going down that path, what do you see as some of the habits across the board? Because in your coaching and mentoring career, habits that for leaders are not healthy and are going to sabotage success.
Oh, people don't listen to one another. They
Yeah.
don't. They just.
Boy, that was quick. You had that one right. You were right ready with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I could. I could see it in my friendships. I can see it. We don't listen. What is that saying? We wait to
Wait.
respond.
Yeah. We listen with the intent to reply, not to learn.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we sit and we don't. And I tell you what, when I was in a coaching training program, we would have Monday meetings, and we had a coach mentor, and she would have us sit there and coach one another, and she would provide feedback. And so, certain times we thought, I nailed that. You know what? You did well here and here and here. But let me tell you, you didn't hear what the person said at the beginning. She said, because you didn't listen. And then although you responded adequately, when the person said that they were overwhelmed in this area, you never supported them by asking questions because you didn't hear that they were overwhelmed. So she went through, she was always very calm, but her main thing with us is that you need to listen, have active listening. And there were certain times, Pat, I thought it was so funny because I'm thinking as I'm listening to my colleagues coaching one another, I'm thinking, boy, they did such a great job. She would still come back and say, but at this point, the person, and because you didn't listen. So it made me think that's a problem of yours, Carla. You're not listening. You're still sitting in, even though I thought I went past the ego of the leadership, I still was not listening to my employees or my colleagues, because I had quite a bit of colleagues that I was working with, whether it was in the organization, outside the organization. You're not listening to them. So I would say the biggest thing is listen. And I had this situation where I worked with colleague of mine for years, and her husband passed away, and I felt so bad for her. Well, she came into my office one day, and she said, "Carla, can I sit here?" I said, "Yeah." I don't think she said, "I just need to sit in quiet for a certain period of time, just short." I said, "Okay." I said, "Will you mind if I work while you sit?" She said, "Oh no, no problem." After 10 minutes, she said, "Okay, Carla, I'm a little bit better." She said, "You know what? I just needed some space because my manager just said to me that your husband passed away a year ago. You should be over it by now."
Holy smokes.
And I sat there, was like, she said, "I just needed space." She said, "Thank you for just giving me space to sit here in quiet, and I'm much better." I thought, oh my gosh, grief does not have a timeline. I didn't say this to her. I was just like, because she was, for the need, she needed me. She eventually, she just got up and left. But I'm sitting there at my desk going, oh my gosh. So it just showed me over time, her leader did not listen to her, did not watch her, that she is still grieving over her husband. And she's not even thinking about the employee. She's thinking about herself. Look, we've got work to do. Get back to work. It should have been, this is all going in my mind, but
Yeah.
you've gotten over it. It's been a year. Get back to work. I don't need to, be there for you in any kind of way. Get back to work. I felt heartbroken for her. I really did. But it goes back to, you're not listening. You're not, and if you have the opportunity, if you still work in the office, you need to be able to watch people, the old saying, the walk around management. You need
Yeah.
to be able to walk around and see how they're doing. I mean, it could be 15 seconds. You can constantly see. I had one employee, he would fall asleep, but then the employees would say, "Carla, he fell asleep." And I said, "I never catch him." They said, "Carla, I can't catch him." And I walked out there one day. It was just an odd time. Then I saw him. Pat, he was knocked out. I said, "Okay." But you've got to be an active, and it takes time because there's so much to accomplish, in your own position. But you've got to take time to listen. You've got to take time to watch them, verbally watch them. You can even watch them over video when you're online. But I would say the number one thing is
Wow.
we don't listen.
John, what you just said reminds me of a John Maxwell quote. People don't care what you think or say until they first know you care about them. And I think that's one of the hardest lessons for people in positions of leadership.
Yeah.
They have the bar, stars, or stripes, whatever. They got the CE, they got the initials behind their name and all that, that they get so focused on their positional authority that they lose sight of their human authority in relationship building, and that people Yeah. What do they say? The four things, I'm paraphrasing Maslow's hierarchy or whoever, the Maslow's hierarchy. We all want safety, security, prosperity, and control in our lives. And if you don't care about those four wants and needs of your people, then they're not going to care about you or
Yep.
what you say. And and I don't know if you've ever seen this. It is one of the funniest videos, but most impactful videos that describes active listening. It's called "It's Not About the Nail." Have you seen? Google that.
Okay.
Google it. Video. It's not about the nail. It's
Yeah.
a couple sitting on a couch, and she's got a nail on her forehead, and she's complaining to her significant other, boyfriend, husband, or whatever. I have all this pain in my head. I have all this pressure, and I just don't. It just won't stop. And he goes, "Well, you got a nail in your forehead." And she looks at him. "It's not about the nail. You never listen to me." And no, 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 no. And then he switches gears, and goes back to complaining. And it's like, well, I appreciate where you're coming from. I can understand how you feel. And she's like, oh, that's what she wanted, was somebody to listen, not tell her what to do.
Yeah.
It's particularly when it comes to emotions and feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as you said that he goes, your husband died a year ago, you ought to be over it by now. Literally, this is what I thought in my head. Oh no, he didn't. And I just wanted to get that finger wag going myself. Oh no, he didn't. But that's such a basic insight that we skim over.
Mm-hmm.
And do you have any advice on how to become an active listener? It's easy to say, well, you need to be a better listener.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do it?
Okay, I'm gonna say that it's not professional. You need to shut up. The easiest way to start becoming an active listener is just sit there and don't say anything, and other people will look at you like, okay, my friend, spouse, whatever. Oh, they're not saying anything, but then they'll feel or they'll actually recognize, ooh, no one's saying, this person's not saying anything. I get to talk some more.
Yeah.
But if you sit there and you just, don't say anything, and if they say, well, you have anything to say, no, you go ahead. You go ahead. It is so hard within because you're screaming, I gotta say something, or I can fix their problem, or I don't like what you said. But it is so hard because your body is fuming because it's not trained to sit there.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I just say. Just sit there and listen, because we're human beings. Most of us, if you have a trust relationship or whatever, we're gonna talk.
Yeah, we actually teach criminal investigators, detectives, or cops in general, interview and interrogation. When somebody's talking, a suspect or even a witness, we tell them that when they're done talking, STFU, you need to shut up. Don't say anything, because silence is awkward in that circumstance, and somebody is going to feel compelled to fill the silence. Don't let it be you. So for cops, that I tell them the best way to learn to be an active listener is to ask a lot of questions and never give advice or answers. Well, you're lying to me. The evidence says X, Y, or Z. For men that are married for a while, or even not married, just think of your mom growing up. You get the look. Yeah, and you're just like, oh crap. Now I got to explain myself or whatever, and you start jabbering. Learn to give the look instead of verbalizing. Man, I'll tell you what, we could go on for hours. I just so enjoy talking with you and your authentic way of going, hey, it's kind of a tough love approach to, leadership advice, but we need to hear it. So this has been a blast. How do people get a hold of you, particularly from a leadership coaching, mentoring perspective? How do people reach out to you?
You can go on my website and you can just simply schedule a meeting with me. We can sit for about 20 minutes and find out where you are. So my website is Coates, COATES, consulting group .info, not .com, but .info. And then I'm on, you can DM me on LinkedIn, even on TikTok, Facebook. So I'm on all the social platforms as well.
And that's at Carla Coates.
For my email address is carla@coatesconsultinggroup.info. And that's with a C, not a K.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong. On your website, there's a resource. It's not a sales pitch or anything. That there's something they can.
Oh yeah. So I have on one of my. They can gain. It's a couple of resources. They can gain a particular. It's kind of like a quiz that they can decide if they want to take. So that's on there. And then also I have a book, and the book is only, I think it's 39 pages, but it's for brand new leaders. And I'll show it to you. It's for brand new leaders. It's called Let's Get Down to Business. And it helps new leaders once you walk into the position. And I decided to write it for two reasons. First of all, I didn't think I would be able to write a book. The second reason is because when I was first hired, I thought, "Oh, I'm hired. I can't believe I got the job." And then I thought, "Oh, what do I do now?" Nobody told me. I was told that, "Oh, you'll figure it out in a year." I'm thinking, all these people. So it's a guide to help you in your first 90 days of leadership.
And is that on Amazon, or do they get it on your website, or both?
Both. Yeah, because my website will take you to Amazon.
Okay. Yeah, that another one of the worst pieces of advice I ever heard is, hey, just take that leap and figure it out on the way down. And I always wanted to go, yeah, it's not the fall that kills you; it's a sudden deceleration. Yeah, I'm not a leaper. I want that parachute on my back, that it was packed by the right guy and I got the right, resources and skill set. This is going totally off the cuff. Would this book be good for people that want to become a leader, not after they've, like in law enforcement? I don't know how it works in the military so much, but in law enforcement, they have oral review boards for getting hired and it's part of the promotion process. Would that be a good book for someone who goes, hey, you know what? I want to promote up, but I want to have not prepared answers, but I actually want to be able to go into an oral review board and show that I know what is going to be expected of me. It's not going to be OJT on the OTJ, whatever, on the job training. So would that be good for your book? Be good for somebody like that?
Absolutely, because one of the things I talk about is you build a relationship with human resources. It's not to get them on your side, but it's to understand your responsibility. So that's one thing you could prepare to say, hey, I'm going to build a relationship with HR because I need to be on the right track. There are rules, regulations, laws in place that I'm not aware of. And the worst thing to do is to find out when you're sitting there and it's HR with the director or whomever and your leader because you did something wrong and you had no idea. I've had it happen myself. So just simple things like that. And also how you need to work with your leader. You need to have regular meetings that a lot of people don't. Oh, figure it out. Well, no, what are your expectations of me? You need to set up meetings on a regular basis so that you learn, because there will be expectations that are not documented. I expect you to collaborate with this particular outside organization. Oh, that's not in my personnel, whatever,
Yeah.
in my job description. So it'll give you some things to help you out, definitely. And also how to take care of yourself instead of the meltdowns like I've had.
Oh man, Carla, this has been a blast. And I know you're going on a mission trip coming up. You'll be back. Well, you're going to be on your mission trip when this drops. So people that are listening, please offer Carla up in prayer for a safe and I don't want to say successful, but yeah, successful mission trip, and that God blesses you and the people that you're going to be serving while you're overseas. For our audience, man, I want to thank you so much for being loyal listeners. Because of you, we're now downloaded in 75 countries and Hong Kong. And it's all because of your commitment to be a warrior servant leader in your own personal and professional life. So keep listening, downloading, liking, commenting. Share our episodes with someone you know who needs to hear this message today. And be sure to follow us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and Substack at Pat Welsh JD. And subscribe to our free newsletter, Warrior Servant Leader newsletter on LinkedIn. Until next week, hey, love you all. And remember, always, always, always strive to do the right thing at the right time, the right way, and for the right reasons. Because that's what warriors, servants, and leaders do every day, every time. See you next week.